Hello, and welcome to another edition of Here We Are. I'm your host, Tonita Cheatham. Thank you for tuning in. High school athletics, when approached correctly, is a part of development for the young that can be very positive. Athletes should and must be scholars first, because a sound body goes well with a sound mind. Now, Paul Robeson is a model that student athletes should imitate. In today's society, the balance between athletics and why one goes to school is skewed against scholarshiping. Today, a young man or a young lady often looks up to athletes as role models for the quick buck. Now, our guest today will share with us the role that athletes should play in the development of students. And he is Dr. Smith, and he is the Executive Director of Physical Development and Health for the Chicago Public Schools. Thank you so much for coming to the program. I got that title right?
Yeah,
right?
That was
Okay.
good.
Okay. What is your responsibility in this position?
Well, first, thank you for inviting me.
Well, thank you for coming.
My position is our department oversees after-school athletics and other activities, social centers, after-school academies, and things of that nature, as well as curriculum. But as you said, athletics plays a very important role in the lives of our students. First, let me say, typically people think, when they think about athletes or talk about athletes, professional athletes, the great college athletes, or even what we call blue chippers out of high school. Mm-hmm. But high school athletics is much more than that. It encompasses a wide range of students that benefit from the experiences in athletics.
In a lot of different ways.
In a lot of different ways.
Yeah, and one way, I think if you have a good blend of athletics with studying, I think the things that you learn in preparing for a game or preparing for your sport can help you in your academics as well.
That's very true. We call our athletes scholar athletes, so
Okay.
that kind of tells you, and we strive for balance between athletics and academics. Mm-hmm. And if done correctly, that's what athletics will provide, a real balance. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, many of our students don't come to school for reading, writing, and arithmetic, as they say. So we use athletics as the hook, if you will, to trick them sometimes into learning things once they get to school. We're working on a minimum grade point average for participation now, which hasn't always been. But we demand that our athletes be scholars as well.
And that's interesting that you mentioned that, because unfortunately at one time when students were athletes in school, there wasn't much focus put on their academics. And so the result was you had a lot of students that went through the public school system who were not that educated. They were very good athletes, but book-wise, they weren't up to par, so to speak. But you feel that is changing.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right, but it is changing. It's always been said that education is the way out of the cultural deprivation and the other things that we as a people face. Education is a way out, but for many of us, athletics is definitely a way out. Mm-hmm. However, if you don't qualify for a college scholarship, you can't take advantage of the benefits. So again, the scholarship comes in on the high school level before you can progress to the next level and perhaps really make something of life.
What is one of the biggest challenges in your job?
The biggest challenge, one of the biggest challenges probably is coordinating the entire program. Mm-hmm. You know, we're faced with some traditional things, and change does not come easy. You know, so probably a great challenge that I have is to promote the need for change, because there will be no change until there's a perceived need for change. So that's a real challenge to say we need to change this. We need to do this differently and get people to buy into that.
What methods do you use to accomplish that?
Oh, you want my secrets? Huh?
Well, yeah. I mean,
well, friendly persuasion is the greatest. And then you example, of course, and you structure, and if there's a structure set, then people are more apt to buy into it. So we set a structure and just promote it. Everyone, I think, somewhere within them recognizes the need for the program and the benefits to students of the program, but here's a new way to do it that's probably better and will benefit more, and sometimes it kind of dragged the feet on buying into change.
I would imagine that you receive a lot of support from Paul Vallis,
Absolutely.
who is really trying to and is doing a lot with shaping up the Chicago public school systems. How do you feel that, how do you rate, I should say, the athletic programs of CPS with other athletic programs in the state?
Well, we're still a little bit behind, but we're catching up. When you look at our suburban counterparts or our parochial counterparts, those systems have always put more money into the sports program. They hire more coaches, they pay more coaches, they put more resources into the schools that participate in sports. And the past 3 years, we've come quite a ways, because Paul Vallis speaks of the value of sports, and he puts his money where his mouth is. So the system now puts much more money into our sports programs than it has in the past. So now our schools have more coaches per sport. The coaches receive a little higher stipend than they used to. We've increased the number of levels of participation. If you go in the suburbs or most parochial schools, you'll find a varsity, a junior varsity, a sophomore, freshman A, freshman B level of competition. We previously had 2 levels, a varsity and what we call a frosh-soph, which was a combination of freshmen, sophomores. We now have 3 distinct levels: the varsity, the sophomore, and the freshman level. And we're looking to improve and expand further.
Okay. You were talking about the differences between the city and the suburbs. What factors do you feel contribute to the success of the athletic programs in the suburban areas?
Well, just that. I mean, they had more elementary programs. They have biddy programs that and youngsters in those areas have access to structured athletic programs from the 5th grade on. Now, 3 years ago, we started an elementary sports program, a structured program, with the 5th grade. So now our youngsters also have access to structured sports programs at the 5th grade on up through 12th grade. Again, more resources are available for suburban and parochial sports programs, but again, we're catching up.
And so you feel that with the improvements that have been made within the athletic program, that the state of the athletics in Chicago is a lot better,
a lot better, and we're well on the way to competing with them, with the suburban and parochial counterparts consistently. You know, we've always had spots where we could beat them and compete with them, but we're well on the way to doing that consistently now.
Since you left coaching at Percy L. Julian on Chicago's South Side and taken over as the head of athletics for the public schools, what other changes have you made?
Well, we started an elementary tackle football program. We structure it by region. We don't have the resources to give each elementary school a program, but we base it on region, and schools from a region will come together and form a team. We started with 4. We're now up to 18 teams across the city.
I'm Tonita Cheatham, and this is Here We Are. In this segment, we're talking to Dr. Smith, who is the Executive Director of Physical Development and Health for Chicago Public Schools. You were talking about some of the changes that have been made in the athletic department for Chicago Public Schools since you took office.
Yeah,
the position, I should say. I'm sorry.
It's important that, and we realize the importance of starting early with young people. Not only for athletic purposes, but for academic purposes. Coaches have a great opportunity to instill in young people not only the need for academics, but good citizenship and sportsmanship and being a good citizen as well. And the sooner we start that, the better off our kids will be. So we have now competition beginning in the 5th grade in 8 sports, well 9 sports with the tackle football for boys and girls. We have 5th and 6th grade competition and 7th and 8th grade competition. So by the time they get to high school, now they should be well on their way to becoming good citizens and good students and productive young people for the community.
Now, how do you stress the academic part of it? I know you do a lot with sports, but you also incorporate the academics with that as well. How are you able to make that, to blend that?
Well, as a minimum grade point average for participation. So if a young person doesn't reach a certain level academically, then they just don't participate, and we have to go a different route. Now, athletics has long been used as a carrot to help young people with academics, and we do that. We don't use it as a stick to beat them over the head, but we hold that in front of them. And if they don't meet that level, then we try to help them with all of the tutoring programs and all of the extra programs that are available now. The summer school, the after-school activities. We have freshman academies, and there's so many things available now to improve academics.
Now, I know that the coaches that works with these kids have the interaction with the students. How much, in your capacity, does it allow you to interact with the kids?
Well, my philosophy toward coaching is this is a way of life. It's not a job, and it's not a 2-hour period or a 6-hour period a day or an 8-hour period a day. It's almost 24 hours, because many times the coach is not only the coach but the father, the brother, the confessor, all kinds of things to kids, because many of these things are missing. So it's not a rare occasion where a parent will call a coach in the middle of the night and ask for help with a young man or a young woman, and very, very often they depend on a coach for help. So a coach has the most influence in many instances on young people. I used to tell parents, a lot of times they say, well, you can't go to practice or you can't play. No, don't take them away from the coach. Take the telephone and the parties and the car away, but let the coach help you with the young person, because the coach is very definitely a center of influence in the schools.
Now, in light of that, what other ways, or how do you feel responsible? What other responsibilities do you feel that you have toward your students outside of providing them with the athletic environment that they could be successful in? I mean, you were talking about you interact with the parents, you were talking about your counselor, all that.
From the coach's perspective? From
the coach's perspective.
Almost a total responsibility. Research shows us that athletes in most instances have higher grades than non-athletes. They're very definitely in school more than non-athletes. So the challenge is not only with the coach, but with the rest of the faculty. If they're in school, teach them something. Truancy is a big problem in some areas. So another aspect of that is athletes come to school more frequently than
because they look forward to going to training, so they go to school. Right. There appears to be a strong level of support for Chicago Public School basketball teams, but when it comes to other sports like maybe baseball or tennis or volleyball, even football, in comparison to the turnout you get with basketball, is kind of sparse. Do you know what contributes to that?
Well, probably many reasons. Basketball is indoors. You're very close to the fans, so your girlfriend can see you, your parents can see you. But we're growing in all areas, not only basketball. Football is up. We instituted a golf program at the elementary school level last year that just took off, and many thanks to Tiger Woods for that. He came to town and put on some clinics for us, and And again, this is a role model, and I don't know that we talk much about role models yet, but Tiger was a very definite role model. I mean, a youngster look at him, and I mean, he's slight, you know, he's not a huge person, and I can do that, you know. And Tiger put on some clinics, and once they got out and tried it, yeah, I can do that too. We're starting with our tennis program. We're expanding the non-traditional sports part of our program. We're bringing on. So not only basketball, we're working with all areas.
And with regard to that too, male and female, you find that people are more supportive of the male sports, male basketball, as opposed to female basketball or tennis or volleyball, which tends to be the sports that they are into.
Yeah, well, that's one of those old things we have to, those old traditional perspectives that we have to change, you know, that sports should be predominantly for males, and that's totally false. We have as many programs for girls as we have for boys.
When you go to a Gately Stadium and you see Simeon versus Julian, you see that the seats are not really all that full, but yet you'll go to a suburban school where Mount Carmel or Providence St. Mel will compete, and it's capacity. I know we kind of talked about it before, but what factors contribute to that, and what do you think can be done, or are you doing, to offset that?
Well, when you go to a Mount Carmel game, the greater percentage of the crowd is comprised of adults. I think the Mount Carmel played Providence High School a week or so ago. There were 5,000 adult tickets sold for that game. So that makes the big difference.
What's the average selling for like a school in the city, like a Simeon or a Julian, which are pretty good athletic programs?
Yeah, but most of them are students at the games. And that leads into another area, parental support.
Okay.
You know, we need the parents to come out. Now, we've done a lot with Will Smith as our security supervisor for special events. All of our stadia are safe now. All of our sports venues are safe now because of a security factor. So we need parents to come out and support their youngsters in sports as well as everything else. Now, on an elementary level, a lot of parents come out. So we're hoping that this carries over into the high school when the kids go to high school. So then you'll see Gately Stadium full of public school parents and students as well.
I'm glad you mentioned that at one time it was, I know when I was in high school, a big thing was the safety factor, but now that you're making changes in that, then I'm sure that would bring the parents back out. Do you think another factor is the whole advertising promotion part to it as well?
That very well could be. Very well could be. We don't get the same media coverage as some of the parochial, and we're working on that though. If you look at the top 25 teams, none of our teams are listed. So there are a lot of adults around Chicago still like high school sports. So they'll look for games to go to, and well, we don't see any of the top games as being publicly games, so they'll go somewhere else.
And you find that in the Catholic or the private schools in the suburbs, or just the athletic programs in the suburbs, they get a lot of support from community leaders, community businesses that put money into those programs. Is that something that could happen here, or it is happening here and is just improving?
Well, yeah, it's improving and we're working on it, but keep in mind that a suburban school or a parochial school, that's the school that the community focuses on.
So it's probably just one school per community.
One school, or the town focuses on it. Whereas we have 57 football schools and 63 schools playing basketball. And the community supporting that school is not as large as the community supporting a suburban or parochial school.
But the bottom line is that the program for the Chicago Public Schools athletics is improving, and that's what counts. I want to thank you for coming to the program and talking about the improvements in the athletic program in the Chicago Public Schools. Dr. Smith.